Good morning, afternoon, something like that, everybody. This is the Wolf Driver coming to you live, if you're watching it live, something like that. It's been a long holiday, festive New Year's season, I guess you could say, and wishing everyone, whatever you celebrate, the best of holidays and a happy, healthy New Year. So everything's been great in Wolf Driver land. I've just been doing the holiday thing myself. Of course, the dogs are always with me doing their holiday thing, whatever that may be. It's always good stuff is what it is. Lots of food, lots of fun, and all that kind of doggy stuff I do. So just real quickly, behind me, or depending where you're watching this, in front or below, is me, of course, the Wolf Driver, with dogs. Some of the dogs have crossed Rainbow Bridge, and they are from previous generations of my Huskies. And you'll recognize Nikita and Lola, if you're familiar with me, from the more current generation of Huskies. And they were younger back here, of course. So we're on the Washington Ditch Trail. So it's actually an area that George Washington himself surveyed, I believe, in 1763. That's a date running through my head. Really interesting place. It's in I believe pretty far south Virginia. It's in what they call the Dismal Swamp area, which is a whole nother subject that's had a lot to do with where the Underground Railroad, they said, where slaves would actually go to seek shelter. And it's a really, really interesting and impactful history. So if you ever get a chance to research it. So this trail was a little off the beaten path. It was a little harder to find. There's a larger trail there, or I should say maybe a more familiar trail, called the actual Dismal Swamp Canal Trail. And we've done that too. And that's looks like a runway or a roadway, but it's actually been converted to a biking trail. So we can mush the dogs there. This trail is a little, like I said, it's not, it's a little more trail-like, where the conditions of it are sometimes a little narrower, and the terrain is a little more what you're familiar with the trail, not asphalt or paved concrete or paved asphalt or concrete, etc. So it's back in nature, and it's actually gorgeous. And it ends, at least the part we were on, it's a little confusing, the layout of it, into what they call Lake Drummond. And it's like a freshwater lake. It's a pretty interesting spot too. Beautiful, beautiful. And I'm running the dogs. You'll see I've got a sidecar on the actual bike. This is called an easy mod bike, I believe, and it comes with the sidecar. So the sidecar is a great way. People put children in there. People put smaller dogs in there. They usually don't put sled dogs in there, but you're looking at the Wolf Driver, so what would you expect? So I have it because the dogs, the senior dogs, the white dogs, you'll see Chase is at the end, and Jag is actually in the sidecar. And the sidecar helped with senior dogs because they're not going to be able to do what the younger dogs can do. It means I could stay out on the trail longer. And if one of them gets tired, which they will when they're seniors, usually, depending on the dog and how much seniority they have, how old they are. So I'll be able to rest them and switch off and all that good stuff. It means they can still participate in all the adventuring we do, which is key for me, because what I do is nothing about competitiveness. So I'm not looking for the fastest or the longest endurance or the most robust dog out there. I'm just, my dogs they're all part of the family. And not to say Musher's dogs aren't, but we're a close knit family because there's 4 dogs here, and I can interact with them more easily on an individual basis. So having the 4 dogs, a small team, gives me that opportunity. And I would never want to leave one of them at home, because they've been doing this for most of their life, adventuring. I adventure with them 2, 3, even 4 times a week sometimes. So we're really active. And for them to stay at home would be just kind of boring, kind of dull for them. So I want them to be with me as much as possible. So when they get older, and that's what the whole concept that I've developed, what I call dog moto sports, wolf driving, etc., is all about them being able to do all the activities we do from any life stage, basically from puppy. Remember, they don't have to pull because you don't want a puppy pulling, and they don't have to work real hard. Just kind of get some energy out and get familiar with the activities we do, to late in their senior years where, unfortunately, age-related debilitating disease like arthritis happens, and they can still participate in some facet and get some exercise and be with their pack and be with their pack daddy, wolf driver me. So that's the whole, it's a whole, I guess, complete cycle of life. They can start with it and they can go as long as they can with it, because it makes it possible, everything I do. So that's important to keep in mind when I talk about everything. My dogs are always participating in some capacity on every activity we do. So at this Washington Ditch Trail, it's perfect for coming into the new year, because I've actually started a new website. Surprise, surprise. We got like 20 websites because I do so much, and I want everyone to be able to share into it, to take something from it, that if I clumped it all together in one website, it would be mind-blowing. You wouldn't be able to keep up with it. So I try to put it more palatable, a more palatable way, by making it into smaller segments or smaller websites that really focus on particular aspects of what I do, so people can pick and choose what they want to see and what they want to research and what they want to learn about, quite frankly. By the way, I know you're saying, what's he wearing a helmet for? To keep me safe. Never know what could happen at any time. Now, I wear these helmets, and I like to show everybody, because I put how I get all these different videos and camera views and everything I do. You can see right there, I'm wearing a camera on my head. That's what I do with the helmets. Now, the helmets enable me to wear essentially bigger cameras, like newer 360 cameras, like an Insta 360. I put all different mounts on them, and I want everyone to understand this, because it's a great way to document some of the things we do in our lives that we want to keep in our memory bank. By being able to wear the helmet, you can just kind of not think about it, have the camera on, and you can actually just go back to it. Like I'm going back, this is probably, I got the date on it, not that long ago, within the past 5 years or so, but I can go back. I've been doing this for 30 years, and GoPro came around probably somewhere around maybe in the 90s, and I had one of the first GoPros, so it's jogging my memory now, but I was out there doing it. So you can get some of the footage now. It's so easy to do with all the capabilities of phones and iPads and everything else, that you can actually take the footage and get it where you can manage it and put it up online the same day. And they didn't really have online when I started this, or it was just coming about the internet. So at least for most people, not I'm sure there was earlier versions where the military and everything else was involved in it, in the internet. So it's really cool, and I want everyone to know that you can really film these helmets. Now, the helmet enables the bigger camera, so I'm actually using a GoPro there. That might be a 360. I can't tell from this angle, and I can't remember, but that is a GoPro 360 if it is. And it's a little heavy for the hat, but it works. When you get into the smaller cameras they have today, they got a GoPro Mini. It easily fits on there, and you really feel like you're wearing nothing. The helmet helps balance and make it not as much of a stress on your head and your neck for using some of the bigger cameras, which can give you some more, more interesting views. You can film, get some bigger close-ups. Using the more sophisticated 360 cameras, you can actually steer the direction you want to see in, and you can zoom in. So a lot of good features, and that's why I wear it, just to let everyone know. Real quickly, so I started this series on the history, pretty much, because, again, I've been doing this so long, and not only to share with everybody, just for my own memories. I have a lot of the videos out there buried inside of YouTube. So some of the best parts of the videos, because back in the day when I was doing a lot of this filming, before, again, a lot of the newer technologies and a lot of the Facebook and TikTok and all that, where they have smaller segments of videos. Some of the highlights of my dog adventures were inside of these videos. And I know today, by most standards, not many people have the attention span, because there's so much going on everywhere we go, to watch the whole video and in its entirety to see the best parts. So what I did, I'm trying to go back in a lot of my archives and find the largest bridge on a particular trail, or the best view because we're at water's edge somewhere, or a tunnel we went through, or some interesting part of history. Like this whole trail was interesting because when you just think about it, George Washington surveyed the area, and he actually, I believe, went up and down pretty much in our footsteps where we were going, in a makeshift cart, I guess, on some kind of temporary rail where they surveyed it, or something along that facet. And it's pretty interesting to just know the history. I get interested in it, knowing that. So there wasn't any real highlight except for when we get to the Lake Drummond, but you could only go to water's edge and just get a good view. So it's some places I'll actually, depending on my dogs and their training, I'll take them off leash to go in some of these, quite frankly, historic waterways like the Potomac River. And there's a lot of footage of me doing that. And there's a place called Stony Creek we go to, which is kind of like a hidden gem. It's a little bit rugged, to say the least, but it is bikeable on most bikes. And it's a trail in the Harrisburg region of Pennsylvania. And one of the most interesting aspects, when we pulled up to it many, many years ago, the first time we did it, we've done it probably a half dozen times through multiple generations of Huskies. But when you pull up to it, there's a sign there that says, if you find anything that looks like a bomb or a torpedo or something, please contact this number because it could be live. So there's a military base somewhere near there, and they were using it to test drop bombs, essentially. And some of them did not deploy or execute, or whatever bombs do, blow up. So they could be out there. And meanwhile, when you look to the left and right of the trail, there are just what looks like endless rocks, and I mean big boulders. I don't even know how you could walk through them, essentially. Oh, quick story. One time on the Stony Valley Rail Trail, and there was a whole village back there, by the way. We actually did a paranormal investigation, but on the Stony Valley Rail Trail, there's this village there's a few remnants of it left, and it's quite fascinating and interesting, and that's one of the reasons. And there's a cemetery there that we wanted to do the paranormal investigation. But we actually broke down really early iterations of my electric dog sled on wheels, and they weren't near as reliable, and they would have issues. So breaking down was part of the gig. So the dogs really had to be trained to be off leash, because when we break down somewhere, there's no walking 4 Huskies that are in there harnessed up and ready to pull. So I'd have to let them loose, basically, and they were trained to stay with me. But that trail, we had the unfortunate incident of breaking down. So back then we didn't have, because that trail, you have limited communication. We didn't have satellite communication then. And so I couldn't get a hold of my wingman, who is in the truck waiting for me. He drops us off at one end, picks us off at another end, picks us up. So we basically had to walk to him. I think it was like a 6-mile walk, something crazy. It was a long walk. He figured out once it started getting dark that we were back there and we were stranded, and he was able to get to us before we had to complete the final 6 miles. But I had the dogs off leash, and I'm like, I don't have to worry here because there's so many rocks everywhere. I don't even think they could walk through all that, at least not easily. They're certainly more capable than us humans because they have 4 paws, 4 legs, etc. So that's the Stony Valley. But that's getting me to the topic of all the history of almost all these trails we run. And in fact, most trails that people will do, especially on their bikes, will probably have some history, because a lot of them are rail trails, which means they were railroads. All over the country, they've got these rail trails. So usually the railroad tracks are taken up, and a nice path is made. Either it's paved or it's crushed gravel, crushed limestone, etc. And we can mush the dogs there. And a lot of them are level, so that makes it really, really nice too. It helps people that are getting older like me, not to have to work up hills, work down hills, etc. And doing the electric dog sled on wheels, the way I mush the trails, I call it adventure mushing the trails, it makes it easier because the dogs, limit a small team again, don't have to pull that kind of weight. But I'm using an electric rig, and I've got other ways to assist the dogs because, again, I'm getting older. And I put this out there because a lot of people are in my predicament and they want high energy breed dogs. So, by the way, again, we're live now. So if you'd like to comment or want me to give you a shout out, whatever the case, now's a great time to do it. And I'm gonna tend to the comments if we have any right now. Rod, do we have any? Okay, so let me go here, and I'm gonna pull this next to me. So Gaming Satisfaction and More says hello. Well, hello to you. I see you have a dog for your icon, so I'm sure you're a dog people, dog lover, etc. Thank you for saying hello. Thanks for dropping by. And Tazza Kathleen Cheney. Tazza, so cool. Thank you so much, Tazza. I think you're the Tazza I met on the let me get this right. It wasn't the Scogle River Rail Trail. It was the maybe it was no. It was it was in Pennsylvania near the ski resort or the ski area. Gosh, I'm trying to think. Perkiomen Trail. So, and that was really cool because I ran into Tazza, and Tazza was giving me the history of the. I was really interested because the Perkiomen Trail we had done a few times in the past. That was probably my fourth or fifth time doing it with, again, other generations of Huskies. And I had remembered, it was interesting to me, there was a ski lift there that I remembered. And I'm like, how is there a ski area? Because this is only a few hours from home. And I didn't think there were that big of mountains that they would have a ski area. So I was really interested. And Tazza was telling me all about the history of it. And there's some I believe you told me there was Indian artifacts or an Indian area back there where the Indians used to gather, I believe, the Native American Indians. And it's really interesting to me because, again, we'll do some paranormal investigations. And I was fascinated by that. And we were going, if I remember the part of the trail where I met, that was near the ski area. And it was just cool. Thanks for your support. And I see you commenting and liking a lot of my posts. Really appreciate that, Tazza. Great to see you again. We'll be out your way sometime in the near future, so stay tuned. And we've got Tammy. Tammy, great to see you. Thank you so much. And I know you're going through some cold temperatures, and we are too. And real quickly, I'm wishing you the best. I know you've got some issues you're working through, and unfortunately, as we get older, we all get some issues. So wishing you the best. Happy, healthy New Year to you. We were out yesterday, and you might have seen my post. We were in the snow at, and quite frankly, the way we do our mushing, I call it electric mush, the electric dog sled on wheels, e-mushing. It was, it's a little hard to find a place to do it right now because we're not running a full dog sled. I've done that before. I've done it with a large team. I've done it many times with a smaller team, just a couple dogs. This is a lot of work for the musher, especially the smaller team you have. But we don't really, there are areas I could do that right now, but I'm not breaking out the sled just yet because the snow is usually few and far between the snowfalls we get that would be appropriate for it. But right now, when the bike trails in really the eastern corridor where we travel up and down the East Coast, going from Massachusetts, the Cape Cod Rail Trail, to the Virginia Creeper Trail, which is kind of like the border of Tennessee. So we got a large range we travel, but most areas right now are pretty snow covered. And when the trails are in that condition, the rigs I use don't really have the wheels to go through it to do the kind of dog motorsports we do. And if I bring out the bigger rigs, they're not supposed to be on those trails. So I don't do that. So I resigned to the farms, and I shouldn't say resign. The farms are a great area to go, but I like to varietize the dog's workouts to the nth degree. So we do the farms one time, the next time we're climbing a mountain road, the next time we're in a more like urban like bike trail. So I don't have that variety right now because of the snow coverings. So yesterday we go to the farm in the Shenandoah Valley. There's a few farms I rent where I can pretty much run the dogs how I'd like to. So we're in the Shenandoah Valley, and there's not many people. I like to bring somebody. I call them my co-pilot because conditions can be really questionable, especially when we're in snow and you've got the wind and you've got snow drifts and areas that are just totally different in the snow. So especially in my age, not that I'm that old, but I just can't be working as hard as I did, because I did a lot of this myself when I was in my younger years. So there's not many people that are going to go at me in the kind of conditions that I went yesterday. It was sunny. That's the only thing I can say that was good for humans. The dogs loved it, of course. But we went to the farm in the Shenandoah Valley that I rent, and we first got there. We have to go through a cattle field in order to get to the areas that the wide expanses of areas that I can really run the dogs the way I want to run them. So the cattle were all by the gate, which makes it a little more challenging. Not that there's any kind of bad interactions, just really gets the younger dogs that I have now excited, and they don't have, we haven't built up enough tolerance for them to not get that excitement. And I don't want to, I could train that out of them, but I kind of let them be like they want to be, because it's going to get out of them. They're going to become less sensitive to it once they have these experiences more. So I had to get my co-pilot. Again, it's hard to get someone to go out with me in these conditions. Had to get him to go out there and kind of shoo the cattle along, because when we first start out, the dogs are, it's like just start firing up the engines. They're ready to roll, and they want to put everything they've got into going. So the cattle there, they're restrained in the sense that they're hooked in some capacity. We're not free ranging at this point on the ATV that I was running yesterday, but just don't want to drive them too crazy and don't want them to get too wild. So he kind of went down and shooed them out of the way. Just when I say shooed them, he just moved them out of the way. We don't shoot anybody, obviously. Don't do that kind of stuff. I never hurt anything, any living creature. So please understand, I just shoo fly, get them out of the way. So we got the cows out of the way. We started going, and all of a sudden we're hit by probably 40-mile-per-hour winds and snow drifts that were getting along the lines of the depths of the dogs and the tires on the ATV. So I was starting to get stuck, actually, and it's got 4-wheel drive, got everything I need to get through it. But when it starts getting that tall, it becomes really challenging. So my co-pilot, after he got the cows out of the way and he's with me, he started making a path with his single track ATV, essentially, that is my unit, to at least flatten some of the snow and test the area out before I would venture into, because you couldn't tell where the snow drifts were. It could be, half an inch, or it could be getting in the foot range with the snow drifts. So, and it all looks the same. It's like a whiteout, they call it, where when it's snowing really hard, you can't see what's in front of you. Well, there's a whiteout when it's all done snowing. I can't tell the disparity to know if there's a snow drift, if the ground's higher or lower, et cetera. So he went there and he was testing out once I got through the initial phases of this, and we were able to make some tracks and able to do almost 5 miles. And it was the way I was running the dogs. Again, I'm using newer ways from my previous generation of Huskies, because there's, from my research and development and working with other people that do similar things, similar exploring and adventuring like I do, we've come up with new ideas and new ways to give the dogs. I'm just looking for the best and most entertaining ways for the dogs to have a good time, essentially. So doing it the way I was doing, it's a little newer to me, so I'm trying to test the equipment. I was using what they call a spider rig. Again, I'll post on this more soon, but you may have seen the spider rig if you follow me. It's essentially a unit that comes off the ATV and goes in front. You can fan it out. So they run dogs in different formations. I haven't seen this lately, but they call it a fanning formation, where they'll take a team and they'll have them being essentially almost a half a circle. And what that's usually done to navigate, so the dog doesn't have to stay in the same track as the dog in front of it, so it's not a single line or two single file lines, and the dog can kind of pick their own path. Because when you're working through rougher terrain, it gives them more options and more freedom to navigate their own way. It's really interesting. So the spider dog rig essentially runs them in their own they can run how they want. I fan them out essentially. And when I'm in an area like I was at yesterday, where I've got all the room in the world, I can make this fan pretty almost a semicircle, at least like 270 degrees. I'm sorry, more, not quite, probably 170 degrees, not quite 180, because then they would be getting on the side of me and I wouldn't be able to see them. So I'm still keeping them out in front where I can get a view from them. But it's a view of them, but it's really interesting. So it was a little different for me too, but the dogs did wonderful. I mean, they were just, you can only imagine. I mean, that's why they call them snow dogs. They were getting into some of these deeper areas and they were jumping up and down, and it was a lot of work for them. A lot of times, people that mush dogs will have trails that they groom, so you don't have to go through this. Now, there are people that'll mush through anything, but when we were running like we were yesterday with a small team like that, it was a little challenging. It was really cool, though. Remember, the ATV, of course, is motor driven, so the dogs are not pulling it. But it was just probably the most fun I've had in a long time, and probably the most fun the dogs have had in a long time too, because they were like little kids out in the snow. Can't wait to post more on that. So got off topic there, but it was a good opportunity to discuss that. I didn't forget, Tabby. Thanks for saying hello. Really appreciate it. Rod, do we have any more? Okay. And we've got another comment here, and this is from Sandra Little. Sandra, great to see you. Thank you so much for all your support as well. Really appreciate it. I'm trying to keep it interesting. I appreciate that. And that's why I post. Sometimes I post pretty heavily, because there's so much to share and so much enjoyment that the dogs and I share together. And I really, my master dog trainer, who unfortunately has passed away, we go back to the 90s, and he was an older gentleman, older than me, hard to believe, huh? He was a grand champion at Schützen, which is German for protection work. He trained police dogs, military dogs, etc. And he taught me just about everything the dogs didn't teach me about dogs. And he would always say, share everything I'm doing, because he saw the joy my dogs bring to me. And he's like, if more people can see how much joy people can get with the dog lifestyle, more people would have dogs and it would be a better world. So that's, really my motivation, is to the betterment of all dogs. So I try to keep it interesting, and I'm so interested, and that's why I post like I do. So thank you so much. Really appreciate, again, all your support. I see you out there commenting and liking a lot of my posts and asking some really interesting questions, which get me to figure out how to articulate some instances, which I like, because it helps me learn. And when I can express that, it helps others learn too. Because when someone asks you something and you didn't look at it that way, you have to go back and think about it. And when you're articulating, when you put it down in paper or in words, it can sometimes take on a different meaning. So it's pretty cool. I like it. Thanks so much again. So back to everything going on. So again, if you're just joining us, you're seeing us on the Washington Ditch Trail, which is Southern Virginia towards, I think it crosses the North Carolina border. We might be on the North Carolina side, actually, here, from about 5 years ago. I'm running the dogs. I know there's a gentleman on YouTube, if you're watching, I think his name is Keith. Keith, I can't always answer, because you're great asking me questions and all your support that I truly appreciate, but I don't always get to answer you as much as I want. But I know you were asking me because you saw all the different rigs and the different ways I run the dogs over the years. I mean, pretty much anything I can attach the dog to, I do. I try it, because I always want to keep reinventing myself and give the dogs the best possible experience. So I keep trying new ideas, and sometimes certain bikes and ways I tether them work better for different kinds of exercises and different kinds of engagement for the dog. So I'll meander back and forth. I'll do it one way, I'll do another. This particular way is, again, a 3-wheel vehicle. It allows me to have a spot to rest the dog, to run the older dogs, etc. And it gives me room on one side to have 3 dogs. Now, some training comes into that, because 3 dogs in that close proximity can be a little challenging, just because dogs are, some of these dogs can be a little territorial, etc. These dogs are great in that position. I'm using more of a standard joring sports. Dog-powered sports are called joring sports. So where they're usually out in front pulling, I'm using it on the side. They're called antennas. And you can see the tether goes through the antenna to kind of keep it from to give the dog a little spring-like action, so it's not excuse me, so rigid if we stop sudden or if the dog wants to pull really hard. And it also keeps the line straight, so it's not as prone to tangling. So that's really cool. That's Lola, Nikita, and Chase. And Jag, if you can see him, he's kind of leaning against me, is in the sidecar. So the history series I'm working on developing, which I'm calling Mush History. And it's about, again, the whole concept is to really organize all the highlights of all the mushing, the e-mushing, because almost all of it's been electric mushing. I have done some joring sports. I actually had a whole, I guess, really, I would sell merchandise products for dog-powered sports. So there was a time I was doing heavily dog-powered sports, but I still had a motor on almost all of my rigs. Not quite all of them, but most of them. But a lot of the places that we ventured to, because up and down the East Coast, it's so historic, Civil War time, etc., that I neglected to single out a lot of those experiences and share them. So I'm trying to do that now, because a lot of people are asking me, well, what do you think's the best trail, or what's the most historic area, or what are the best views, or what are good for getting involved with just one dog? Or some people don't even have dogs. They just want to know what trail I like the best, for what reasons, what would be the best. Now, the electric bicycles are legal on almost all trails, at least a lot of the ones that I know of. And which would be best to use that? Where would be least challenging or most challenging? So I'm trying to put all that information together in a website right now I call Mush Quest, Quest. And that started with me on my quest to climb the highest mountains or mountain roads or hilly roads that are bikeable, the biggest grades, I'm saying. And I've found a place that ranked them state to state. So I pull up Maryland, for instance, where I live, and I say, what's the 10 most challenging bikeable grades in Maryland? And we visit them. So far, because it's so new and we've gotten sidetracked here with the snow a little bit, I think I've done 3. I've done 1 in Maryland and 2 in Pennsylvania. And they are really cool. And again, I'm using a motor. So I'm using my single track ATV that is road worthy, because some of these are real roads. And at least road worthy for what we're doing. And it is capable of climbing these intense mountains. So the dogs can't pull this, but they can get the benefit of the exercise and the challenge of running along with my single track ATV, what is a military scooter essentially. And they can get challenged by that, but that challenge, I've done it with them. So that challenge is short-lived. So some of these grades will, the longest ones I've run into are maybe 3 miles. Well, the dogs after those 3 miles aren't exactly done. So I have to continue on, but they're usually in areas that we've gone to, or I'll have my team with me that make it a workable area for the rig that we're on, that I can take the dogs and get in more mileage, at least get to 5. 10 miles is preferable, depending on conditions. When it's cold and there's snow on the ground, not too much, the dogs, 10 miles is more like it. But when it's warmer, as it gets warmer, again, the genius of everything here is this becomes nothing more than a glorified walk in the warmer times. Now, you can't go in the real warm times, of course. You don't want the dogs outside in those times, obviously, anyway. But when it's still manageable, they don't have to work, because when they work in what we call manageable temperatures, it's too hot for them. So when it's still manageable, they can just take their time and walk, because they don't have to propel the vehicle, and it gives them a way of still getting a little bit of exercise and getting out of the house and getting some new sights and sounds, etc. But that's a time where we can walk for them up these hills, up these steep inclines, and they can do it at the pace, at a slower pace. So the other energy is what happens is cooling their body, because most of that energy is spent panting to help cool themselves. So and there are ways that I cool the dogs to keep them, I guess, conditioned and in shape for the warmer months, like finding areas that have good streams we can run through. I call that underwater bridges or unbridges. That's on the MushQuest website, where they can kind of go through, because their pads are a real effective way of cooling them because they sweat there. So they emit a lot of heat there. So when they get underwater, they're able to cool water. They're able to cool off more effectively, and it helps recover them on a warmer kind of day. But warmth, heat is their worst enemy. So we always want to be really careful about working them. What feels comfortable to us is warm to them. And those warm temperatures can really wreak havoc on asphalt and solid surfaces, especially dark ones, because the sunlight's attracted to them, and it still feels cool or manageable to us outside, but those surfaces get warm quickly. So I always carry a laser thermometer, shoot it at the surface, determine if it's too hot, feel it with my hands, and if it's too hot for us, it's way too hot for them. It's not even close. So that's the way we do it. But booties and other products, waxes, non-toxic waxes, so there's a brand called Musher Secret, can help with that too, but generally want to avoid those kind of areas and surfaces. So the MushQuest will give you an insight into these areas and some real highlights of them. So you might want to get out there. If you know someone that lives near there, you might want to recommend or ask them about, or you just might want to live vicariously through what I did and learn. I mentioned the history, and of course, some of the website has some links to the history. You can also look it up when you know the name of the place or the particular area we were at. You can look that up, or the structure. Sometimes there's one I just posted today. It's on the Armstrong Trail. It's so funny because it's called a cooling tower, but it's also called a coaling tower. And I didn't even realize that till I was posting it. And I went to a few years back with these dogs, actually, with Chase and Jag. And it's so funny because I didn't realize that's where they load up on coal, but I believe they cooled there also. It's a little convoluted, my understanding of it, but it's pretty cool. It's on the middle of the I'm going to call it the middle. It's on the Armstrong Trail. Actually, it's more towards the beginning. And there's another trail there called the Red Bank Valley Rail Trail. It's all in Pennsylvania. And when you get to it, you're like, what the heck is that? It's just so like it stands out like a sore thumb. Just what were they thinking? And when you read the history, which I do on the post, it becomes more, I guess, you can visualize it better. But remember, they didn't have anything of the modern day conveniences or transportation the way they do. Plus coal, I mean, coal is still used. So this was the way they transported it from section to section. While I was researching the highlights there to show to post and to put on my website, I came upon a tunnel there that we went past, and the tunnel looked closed. And I've been posting a lot about the tunnels that we've mushed through. And I was like, I wonder more about that tunnel, because sometimes you can get into the beginning parts of these tunnels and we can do paranormal investigations. We can go there to help the dogs cool if it's in the warmer months. So I'm like, I didn't explore that tunnel, and I'm wondering why. So I researched more, and that tunnel, I just had the name and it slipped my mind, was they just opened it up 2024 that you can go through the tunnel, and it's like almost a 2,500 foot tunnel from what I read, which is pretty good. I mean, the longest tunnel just to give you perspective, we've mushed through. So a mile is like 50 some hundred feet. So the longest tunnel we've done is 6,500 feet. So if I'm recalling that right, or is it I think it's 6,500 feet. One of the abandoned tunnels on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and that's a whole nother history. But for 2,500, that would be like the sixth largest tunnel that I can recall that I've ventured through. I haven't done it yet, but I put that on my bucket list. So the next time I go back to the Armstrong Trail and the Red Bank Valley Trail, they're both close together, I can get through that tunnel. It's funny because we were just there. literally, I think before the holidays or right after Christmas, we went to the Armstrong Valley Rail Trail because there was a bridge that opened up that I wanted to cross, and we could never find the bridge because we got, these when you look at trails, I use a couple different apps, All Trails and Trail Link. They're pretty big apps on smartphones, on I guess iPads, whatever, and they're pretty much the best I could find to tell about the trails and ratings and everything else. But it's not like Google Maps where these roads are traveled by so many people, so you get so many reviews that become more and more accurate, and so many directions by Google Maps. And as the road changes, they get detours, they get traffic, they get issues. They're almost always updated. Well, a lot of these trails, not always updated. Sometimes you get to the trail and it's closed. Well, that's what happened with us trying to find this new bridge that they opened, because it was at the other end of the trail. And the way we were looking at the map, because again, it's not super sophisticated like other aspects we're more used to in today's modern day world. There wasn't any AI on it, at least that I could tell. So we got off at the wrong end. So we were never able to make it. We got down to the area after we were done because the rain came and we had gotten enough mileage for the dogs. So we were able to drive to the area where the new bridge is, and we figured that's the opposite end from where we started. So hope to get that next time. But this all becomes, if you listen to everything I'm saying, it's a lot of logistics. And especially as much as I've done to work this all with the dogs and the people support team I need, it becomes like a job that I love, a labor of love. But you really, to make it the most interesting and adventurous time that we can have, it takes some research and planning and a good support team. They say it takes a village, especially because our number one concern is always the dog safety. So it's not like we're just getting into an electric bike or an ATV and going to willy-nilly it. You really got to plan this out in the sense to understand the dogs and how they're going to work into the equation. It's all built around them, basically, and how we can best entertain them. Because I do it for them, but these times we share together become so special because I associate them with all these historical aspects I'm talking about and all these views. So if you say to me, well, we are the coaling tower, I remember the dogs I was with at the coaling tower and what the weather was like that day and what conditions were like. So it's really, really interesting. So I'm going to look. Do we have any more comments or questions, Rod? Okay. So I'm going to go back to see what we've got. I got to put my glasses on here. And Karen McKnight, great to see you, Karen. Thanks so much for stopping by. If my husky knew about you, she'd be jealous of your dogs. Thanks so much, Karen. I really appreciate that. And I started off doing this in a very limited fashion. I was the only guy doing it. I had a 9-to-5 job. I should say, I couldn't get any people to help me except for my wife when she could. But I was had a 9-to-5 job, and I'd have to go out at night or at least in darkness because with the time changes in the winter, that's the conditions after I got out of work. So this has kind of evolved into a lifestyle. So I know, because I see you out there with your comments and your support and your great questions and all your likes. I know your Huskies are well taken care of. So they're loving life with you too. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay, and our next one from Haley Stevens. Haley says, I love all the trails too. I mean, the trails are just so interesting to me. So I'm going to go back 2 years ago, we deviated a lot. So I got probably more than 2 years ago now, I think it was back in 2019, putting my thoughts together here of the timeline. I got the Swin car and the Easy Raider. So the Easy Raider is the military scooter. The Swin car is basically almost like the bike-like ATV. So they're off-road vehicles. And I wanted to run the dogs through different areas and do a different kind of adventuring because I've been doing for about 20 years, bike trails, rail trails, doing the bike-like setups and scenarios. And I said, you know what? I want to get a little more adventurous. I want to go onto some mountain roads, and I want to go off-roading, what they would call off-roading. With the dogs, how can I do it? And these off-road bike-like vehicles gave me that opportunity. So when I go back now, and I still do some of that, so I try to mix it to get the best of all worlds, but a steady diet of that was like cool, but I missed the history of the rail trails, because we'd get on these roads, these mountain roads, and there was no real discernible history that I could figure out per se. So like Tuscaro, if I'm saying that right, or Bald Eagle State Forest, for instance, you can go through all the mountain roads, and it's packed with some of the most incredible views you'll see for this area, maybe even in the world. It's just gorgeous. And the history is fascinating, but you really have to study it. There's no trail signs telling you, well, there's a few, but they're few and far between. This happened here, and this was named for this, and et cetera. So the rail trails really provide a lot more in-depth history, where you can really get a better idea of what occurred there. You got to remember, these mountain roads, a lot of them were log-in roads. So they would log the mountain, and the history is more known amongst the families and the villages that did that. On the railroads, there was, I guess, because more people accessed them, the history could be more abundant and more known. So the roads, these mountain roads I talk about, and I did find some really cool history. While they're awesome, the trails just hold a special place in my heart. So really, really quickly, I did want to mention, though, one of the most interesting, I'm going to say, spots, it sticks out in my mind at least, that we're talking about this, and I'm podcasting or vodcasting about all these history and trail history, et cetera, was a place, I believe it was on Tuscaro Mountain in Pennsylvania, which is a big mountain or mountain range. We've done a lot of dog adventuring through there. Was an airplane crash site, and it was just, I was like, what is this? You get to it, and there's a plaque of an airplane in the middle of nowhere. You're just on this road that probably sees one person pass it a day, maybe bike or vehicle or dog sled. It's really, it's pretty well maintained, but it's pretty well out there. And it was talking about, it's a commemorative memorial that is about someone that had just it was a military plane, a small military plane, from my understanding, that had crashed there on the mountainside, unfortunately. And we actually ventured out into the woods. I tried to find where, like, remnants of the crash. I couldn't find it because I probably didn't have doesn't tell you the exact area. But this was, I guess, because it was on the roadside and be more visible. That's why they put the little commemoration area there. And we actually went back and did a paranormal ghost hunt there. And we got some really interesting and unbelievable evidence there. So I don't know, a lot of people don't believe in paranormal, and I didn't either until I started doing it. And I actually hired a professional ghost hunter, and that's how I learned. So we did that for many years, and we had stopped doing it. And when I came across this area, I'm like, we got to call in I call them the werewolves, the dogs that go with me, and the team of people, and I call them the werewolves team. And I said, I got to round up the werewolves team and investigate this area, because it was so interesting. So thanks, Haley, for saying hello, and that you love the trails. They're just amazing. So anything else, Rod? Great, thank you. So I am the Wolf Driver, and again, this is the trail, by the way, the the Washington Ditch Trail. And again, he surveyed this area. I'm saying 1763. I could be totally wrong, but somewhere in that vicinity from what my memory says. And it says it if you go on my Mush Quest website, the date, and tells a little bit more. It's still a brief synopsis in a title, and then you can further look it up. And I'm with the dogs, and it's having a great time. That's why I'm smiling. I'm always having a good time when I'm making the memories with the dogs. Incredible area, incredible stuff we do. And I know there's a lot of people out there doing similar stuff. And I love reading about their adventures. They inspire me in a lot of ways too. Not so much with the dogs, but they're adventuring out there on these trails, and they're usually not traveling like we are. So I can, they have the history down better because they're more familiar with the area. So I can read about and sometimes even talk to them. I see people on the trails that are native to the area, and they can tell me more. And it's fascinating to me. There are other people out there that run dogs on some of the trails that I do in a more consistent fashion. They'll just, because they're good trails for running dogs, and they do it in a more dog-powered sports, what they call joring sports, where the dogs are actually pulling and they're wearing a sled dog harness so they can get the full range and movement and the leverage to pull the sled or the sled-like rig, even if it's on wheels. So it's a different sport than what I'm doing. I'm doing what I did invent this by merging a few dog sports together. So it's more of a hybrid sport, and it's all explained on my Dog Moto Sports website. But it is interesting sometimes learning about other people running their dogs on some of these trails, which again are historic, and how they're running the dogs. And we usually don't catch up with them. Our paths just don't cross, no pun intended. But it would be very interesting. And it's neat to see that on the internet. Some people there's the trail that's closest to me that I did for many years by myself with my first two huskies. There's a group that runs their, at least it's a person. I think it's a whole group that they do tours with. But a lot of people will confuse me for them. And they're people after my own heart, doing what I love to do, again, just in a different way. And cool stuff. So I appreciate you tuning in today. We skipped a few weeks because of the holiday, and we're trying not to skip anymore. So today I'm on a Thursday. We're usually on Tuesdays. But with our schedules between my producer and myself, sometimes it just works out that way. As we get further into our VODcast series, we hope to have a more consistent time. Again, you can always go back and check out my podcast. I call them VODcast, actually, because we're on video here. And leave comments, because I'm pretty active on social media and posting away and going back and going through people's comments. And again, I enjoy a lot of the questions. Even sometimes I know people come off sometimes a little rude because they accuse me of being cruel to the dog somehow. Usually people that don't understand working breeds, which I'm not saying anything bad about. I just appreciate the questions and the comments so I can address them properly, kind of clear the air, so people that are interested in getting a working breed, especially like a sled dog breed, like a husky, they know the truth about them, and from someone with experience, instead of someone just saying what they think and not having any experience with it. Not saying they're bad, but people will see their comments on my feed or my post, and they'll say, oh my gosh, yeah, that dog's being cruel. I'm going to go rescue that guy's being cruel to his dogs. I'm going to go rescue a husky and give it the best lifestyle possible by making him a couch potato and getting him to stay on the sofa with me all day and feeding him all the food he likes, whatever. So they go to the shelter and do a good deed, rescue a dog. It's wonderful, wonderful to do. And they bring that husky home, and they don't quite know what they got into. So the husky most of them don't want to be on the sofa. They do like to eat sometimes. They can be finicky, picky eaters too, but taking down, food all day, they need a really active lifestyle. And what I do here through Dog Motorsports gives people the opportunity to run the dogs, and the people could be in almost any capacity. So even some people that are handicapped that are unfortunately handicapped in some ways can participate in this because of Dog Motorsports and some of the systems that I've designed. But as we get older, we don't have to live the lifestyle of a full-on musher to have these sled dog-like breeds, because we can do it through Dog Motorsports in ways like that. Even doing some of the dog-powered sports still takes a lot of work. The dog motorsports is a little more just like push and go. And the dogs love it. It's just a little different, but still almost breed specific for them because they're doing familiar like ways. And real quickly, I did want to just touch on a topic. So just want to tell you, people will go get these dogs and not understand what they're getting into because someone, and I hope they don't just base it on this, because people read comments on my feed of people that think they understand it and they don't. And that's why these dogs can become at times one of the most abandoned and surrendered breeds. But I had someone real quickly comment that, the dog wasn't born with a harness on attached to a sled. Oh, so true. But these particular dogs and other working breeds have the traits in their blood, in their DNA to that are needed for their particular purpose, why they were bred, essentially. And they can access them. It's like second nature to them. So they can access them very easily. So when you put that harness on them and you do attach them, it's like familiar, like it's in the back of their mind, because it is. So with a little bit of training, very little bit, they're ready to go. So though they weren't necessarily born that way, they've got the traits. And if they're allowed to flex and to be enriched with their breed-specific traits by doing them, then they become wonderful family companions. They can be. So that's what makes it all possible, is giving them the physical and psychological enrichment they need. Once they can sow their oats, then they become much more trainable and much better family dog, if that's what you're looking for. And that's a much more part of the family and part of your team, the human and canine bond. I'm Wolf Driver, getting a little deep there, and it's for another show, another topic. Thanks so much for everybody for dropping by and viewing any part of this podcast or VODcast. And again, don't be shy. Don't be a stranger. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, please put them down on this comment section wherever you're watching this, and I should get to it. And if not, put it down. Even if you're in another post I make, you put it down there. I will get to it and respond accordingly. Have a great day, everybody. Wishing everybody a happy, healthy new year again. I'm Wolf Driver.